So what's going on guys, Kades here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the top 3 best fame farming builds in Albion Online. So for each and every single build I will show you what abilities and armor you want to get, then I will explain every single skill and the best skill rotation that you want to use. And then lastly I will show you the best gameplay so you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. So no matter how much silver or how high or low your weapon masteries are, you can easily use these builds and follow the step-by-step guide. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get straight into it. So then moving over to the first fame farming build, which is the Hand of Core, aka the Great Axe, and we chose this weapon because it is very high AoE damage, and it is by far one of the best and easiest weapons to use for solo or group fame farming. And unlike other axes, this Hand of Core gives you the best balance for high damage and being able to hit multiple mobs at the same time. So if you are looking for one of the best fame farming builds for all type of PvE content, then this is the one for you. So then moving over to the build, and for the weapon we want to go with the Hand of Core. So for your Q you pick the second option, then for your W pick the last fifth option, and lastly for your passive you want to go with the Life Leech, which is the second option. Then for the helmet you want to use the Scholar Cowl and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for the chest armor go with the Stalker's Jacket and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for the boots, go with the Hunter Shoes and choose the second ability and second passive. Then for your cape, you want to pick the Tether cape. And then lastly for your consumables, you want to go with the Poison Potions and Cabbage Soup. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build and how to get out of your abilities the best possible results. So for the first Q spell we have the Rending Spin, and this ability will swing your axe in 5-meter radius and do damage depending on how close or far you are from the enemy. So if the enemy is 2.5 meters away, then you will do 229 damage. But if he's 5 meters away, then you will do 345 damage. And then lastly, each time you use the skill it will apply a Rending Bleed, which will make the enemy take damage every second for the next 6 seconds. Then the second W skill is called the Raging Blades, and this ability creates 2 magic blades that spin around your character, and each time the blade hits the enemy he will take bleeding damage and increase all of your damage by 4%. And this can stack up to 10 times. Then the third skill, which is our E button, and it's called the Whirlwind. This ability will make you spin around while swinging your axe, and each hit you will do damage, and each time you hit one enemy multiple times your damage will increase and much more. So then moving over to the R skill, which is called the Electric Field, and this ability unleashes a electric field in 6-meter radius that lasts for 7 seconds, and each half of a second it will do a bunch of magic damage. Then the next skill is called the Energy Field, and this ability will give you a energy shield that increases your armor and magic resistance. And then most importantly, each time you get hit by the enemy, you will get bunch of energy back. And because we have unlocked this skill, we won't ever have to stop to regain energy. And then moving over to the last and final F skill, which is called the Refreshing Sprint, and this ability will give you movement speed by 80%, while at the same time reducing your cooldown by 33%. So this is a simple and nice buff that will help you to escape enemy attacks and give you a nice cooldown reduction at the same time. So then going over to our Tether cape, and this cape will do a bunch of damage every 15 seconds when we auto attack the enemy. So don't forget to keep on using auto attacks when the rest of your abilities are on cooldown. And then for fame farming and general PvE, we want to use Poison Potions. So if you don't have that much silver, use potions only on bosses, or if you have a lot of silver, then use them as much as you can. So with all this said, let's move over to the best rotation that you want to use while fame farming. And like I said, this build is very powerful but very easy to use at the same time. So mainly you want to use your abilities as soon as they come off cooldown, and I prefer to start the fight with activating the Raging Blades, then Rending Spin, then Whirlwind, and then lastly finish it off with the auto attacks and using your Q ability as much as possible. By this first rotation, the first mob group should be dead, so then for the second rotation while fighting the second mob group, you this time want to use the Electric Field, then activate the Energy Shield, and now from here we again use auto attacks and the Q ability as much as possible. So with that said, now let's see what we did in this rotation. But first, while using the Raging Blades, we make the enemy take damage over time and give ourselves a buff to increase our damage, and then we use the Q and E spell, which will do mainly a lot of AoE damage. And then for the second rotation, we this time want to use the Electric Shield to activate our second type of AoE damage over time, and then we use the Energy Shield to regain our energy. The reason why we want to use 2 rotations is because we have a lot of damage and we don't want to use all of our skills all at once. So that's why we want to split our damage, and as I've said, this build is very simple and easy as long as you split off your abilities to 2 different groups. And then by the time you get to 3rd mob group, your first rotation should be back up. But of course you only should use this method if you're not fighting a big boss, and that's about it. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for the best and easiest fame farming build in Albion, then this is the one for you, so enjoy! So then moving over to the second build, which is the Great Frost Staff. And I chose this weapon because it is very high AoE damage, and it is by far one of the best and easiest mage weapons to use for solo or group fame farming. So if you are looking for one of the best fame farming builds as a Frost Staff, for all type of PvE content, then this is the one for you. So then moving over to the build, and for the weapon we want to go with the Great Frost Staff. So for your Q, you pick the 3rd option, then for your W, pick the 2nd option. And then lastly for your passive, you want to go with the Aggressive Caster, which is the 3rd option. Then for the helmet, you want to use the Royal Cowl and pick the 3rd ability and 1st passive. Then for the chest armor, you want to go with the Scholar's Robe and pick the 3rd ability and 1st passive. Then for the boots, go with the Cleric Sandals and choose the 3rd ability and 2nd passive. Then for your cape, you want to pick the Morgana cape. And then lastly for your consumables, you want to go with the Poison Potions and Pork Omelet. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build and how to get out your abilities the best possible results. So then for the first Q spell we have the Ice Shard, which drops the circle-shaped ice that explodes, dealing bunch of damage. Then the second W skill is called the Frost Nova, and this ability teleports you, and if you are right on the enemy while teleporting, then you will stun the target and do a bit of damage. Then the third skill, which is our E button, and it's called the Hail, and this ability will drop 2 times bunch of ice shards in a circle radius, each time dealing a lot of magic damage, and it is very useful for massive AoE damage. So then moving over to the R skill, which is called the Speed Caster, and when you activate it, you will receive 50% cast time reduction, and all of your skills will cost 75% less mana, aka energy. Then the next skill is called the Perpetual Energy, and when using this ability, it will give us an energy cost reduction to 0. So after activating, in the next 15 seconds, you can use as many skills as possible, and all of them will cost 0 energy. And then moving over to the last and final F skill, which is called the Blink. And this is our second teleportation skill that will simply just teleport you to our targeted position. So then going over to our Morgana cape, and this cape will give us a passive that when we use our E ability, it will automatically activate this cape, which will give us additional 50% cast time reduction, but it has a 1.5 minute cooldown, so we have to look at the left side of our screen to see when it comes back up. And then like in the first build for our fame farming and general PvE, we want to use poison potions. So if you don't have that much silver, you want to use poison potions only on bosses, or if you have a lot of silver, then use them as much as you can. So with all this said, let's move over to the rotation that you want to use while fame farming. So at the beginning of the fight, we want to activate the Perpetual Energy, then use the Hell, and this activates our Morgana cape, so then we want to spam as much Q ability as possible. Then when the cape runs out, we want to activate the Speed Caster, which will give us the super casting speed for the second time, so then we again spam the Q ability as much as possible, and that's about it. So now let's see what we did in this rotation. But first, while using the Perpetual Energy at the beginning of the fight, we reduce our energy cost to 0 for all skills for the next 15 seconds. So then we use our E ability, which will do a lot of AoE damage, and then we activate our cape, which will give us ability to spam our Q ability very quickly. Then when the cape runs out, we want to use the Speed Caster, which is our second super speed skill, and then we can spam our Q ability again. Similarly, like in the first build, I recommend to use the first speed casting on the first group of mobs, and then use the second speed cast on the second group. But for Frost, it mostly depends on the player and how strong mobs you're fame farming, so it's up to you if you want to use all of your skills all at once or save them for second group. And then lastly, we want to use both for W and F skills, which are the teleports for escaping enemy attacks, or if you want to use your W for extra bit of damage, and that's about it. So in a quick summary, if you are looking for one of the most fun and highest damage fame farming builds in the entire game, then this is the one for you, so check it out and enjoy! So then moving over to the last and final build, which is the light crossbow. And we chose this weapon because it is the best damage dealer from all crossbow weapons. The light crossbow has the perfect balance between AoE damage and high single target damage potential. And most importantly, it is a one-hand weapon, so we can use an offhand for higher damage stats and much more. So if you are looking for the best fame farming build for all type of PvE content like corrupted dungeons, normal dungeons, hardcore expeditions and activities like that, then this is the build for you. So then moving over to the build itself, and for the weapon we want to go with the light crossbow. So for your Q you pick the second option, then for your W you pick the third option, and then lastly for the passive you want to go with the well prepared, which is the second option. Then for the helmet you want to go with the hunter's hood and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for the chest armor go with the cleric robe and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for the boots, go with the scholar sandals and choose the second ability and second passive. Then for your cape, you want to pick the Tetfer cape, and then lastly for your consumables, you want to go with the poison potions and cabbage soup. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build and how to get out your abilities the best possible results. So for the first Q spell we have the explosive bolt. And this ability will fire explosion, dealing bunch of damage in 3-meter radius. Then the second W skill is called the Call Troops, and this ability shoots a trap in 2-meter radius. Then when the enemy steps on it, it will slow him, then deal damage, and you will get a small 20% movement speed. And this is a great ability to just use for trapping the enemy monsters and then using all of your AoE skills. Then for the third skill we have E button, and it's called the Exploding Shot, and this ability shoots a sticky bomb that deals damage, then it waits for 2 seconds to detonate, and then it deals massive amounts of damage to all enemies in 5-meter radius. So then moving over to the R skill, which is called the Everlasting Spirit, and when you activate it you will become immune to all enemy damage, and in return you will get 20% damage increase for the next 3 seconds. Then the next skill is called the Retaliate, and this ability increases your resistance for the next 4 seconds, while most importantly it will reflect up to 70% of all enemy damage back to the enemy. And then moving over to the last and final F skill, which is called the Energy Sprint, and this ability will give you 80% movement speed, while at the same time regaining energy every second. This skill is not a huge ability, but it's useful for energy and to escape enemy attacks. So then going over to our Tetfer cape, and this cape will do a bunch of damage every 15 seconds when we auto attack the enemy. So don't forget to keep on using auto attacks when the rest of your abilities are on cooldown. Then for fame farming and general PvE, we want to use poison potions. So if you don't have that much silver, use potions only on bosses, or if you have a lot of silver, then use them as much as you can. So with all this said, let's move over to the rotation that you want to use while fame farming. So at the beginning of the fight, you want to place the trap by using your W skill called Call Troops. Then we use our E and Q skill as soon as it comes off cooldown, and then we keep on using auto attacks, and to be honest, that's about it. This build mainly has 3 high damage abilities, and then the next 3 skills, which are R, D and F, all are meant for defenses, and how you use it depends on the fight. So for example, I may use my Retaliate ability if I'm fighting ranged mobs, then maybe if my trap ability misses a mob and he gets close to me, then I may use my Everlasting Spirit to become immune to all damage, or perhaps I will activate my F ability to run away or around the enemies, and etc. So then as for the rotation explanation, we most importantly want to use the Call Troops ability to place a trap that will basically slow/stun our enemies, so then we'll deal damage from the range. Then we use the Q and E and auto attacks as much as possible, and that's about it. This build has no need for stacks or timing, so the longer you will play, the better you will get. So in a quick summary, if you are looking for a very simple build that doesn't require a lot of masteries to use, and a build that is high damage and beginner friendly, then for sure try this one out, and I hope you have fun. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good Albion online builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in my next video. So take it easy, peace.